local, more meaningful. You're watching News 9, celebrating 50 years of service to Oklahoma.
Welcome. For 5 decades, News 9 has been dedicated to bringing you news and information that affects your lives.
Tonight we bring you a special look at 50 years of News 9. A look at the memorable moments in news, weather, and sports. And a look at members of the News 9 family who've come and gone.
To go back, we must start at the beginning. News 9 has deep Oklahoma roots, locally owned and operated since December of 1953. A family you're familiar with in the grocery store aisle decided it was time to grow a new product, and so they did. It was a time of change. A world that once depended on fireside chats over the radio waves was getting hooked on the moving picture box.
Sometime between 1947 and 1953, my father was driving around Oklahoma, and he noticed that the biggest houses in town had TV antennas, and the smallest houses in town had television antennas.
Television was taking over from radio, and John Griffin of the Griffin Foods family wanted to buy into this new technology. With the help of friends, family, and investors, Griffin bought KWTV and 2 other stations.
He said to himself, there's something here. This is going to stick.
Johnny Carson was only a game show host at the time, but he made his way to Oklahoma City in November of 1954. It was here the station's tower, the tallest of its kind in those days, began sending out a signal from more than 1,500 feet up in the air. So on December 23rd of 1953, News 9, or Big 9 as it was then known, flipped the switches.
It would take some time before 3 daily newscasts would beam into your home. Master Control Operator Spec Hart, a longtime member of the News 9 family, remembers when the Big 9 logo first graced the airwaves.
Mr. Edgar T. Bell was the general manager at that time when we went on the air, and he had the people who were employed here to walk past the camera and identify themselves and tell what department they were in. As far as I know, that's the first thing that was broadcast when he did that.
Since that first signal hit your TV antenna, News 9 has brought you more than 54,000 newscasts. 50 years ago, television news in Oklahoma City was in its infancy, much different than today.
Yeah, long before the network of radios, satellites, and city cams we have today, photographers at the brand new KWTV were already coming up with daring and innovative ways to cover the news. And one pioneer's time behind the camera is as clear today as it was 50 years ago.
You know, they were kicking, now they're throwing rocks at me.
Bob Matthews, one of just 3 photographers at Big 9 in the mid-50s, happened to stumble onto this bar fight one day and shot it. This film never made air, but who knew? Back in the day, there were no hard and fast rules for covering the news, or even what defined television news. So journalists like Matthews learned as they went. And they had to learn fast because they got closer to the action, or were allowed to get closer to it, than we ever are today.
Now I see a crime scene of a yellow crime tape, a couple of red and blue flashing lights, maybe a picture of a policeman, and then a shadowy scene.
But Matthews and his colleagues stood shoulder to shoulder with policemen, even at times when it maybe wasn't prudent, like when a Del City man threatened to blow his head off with a shotgun. Police downed the man with a round to the leg. Matthews just feet away.
We might have some breaking news we can send you out on.
Now 69, Bob, former Big 9 chief photographer, was quite surprised when our current chief pulled this old Oricon film camera out of storage.
This is the first time I've had one since I left the station in 1964. Seems heavier than it did when I was 25 years old.
That's Bob up there. Coat and tie, then the uniform for a Big 9 photog, on top of the news unit, posing in front of the station. Trusty Bell & Howell film camera in hand.
16 millimeter in living black and white.
And often silence. But silence, black and white, didn't mean boring.
A lady had a wild animal in her yard that she didn't recognize.
I mean, when was the last time police asked a newsman to take a captured varmint out to the zoo?
The zoo guys wanted to see what was in there. Well, the problem was that when they opened the can, he started jumping out. I don't know, they didn't know if they'd buy it or not, and we were trying to hold the lid on.
A lot has changed since Bob's days at Big 9. Some for the better, like our coverage during the bombing.
Heavy damage downtown.
You felt like you were there because of helicopters, because of the live telecast that you were able to do, the way you handled that. I don't think it could be excelled.
Oh, Bob shot aerials back in the beginning from an airplane, but getting the film on the air was, let's say, more thrilling.
We had about a 6-foot red streamer, and we would ask the pilot to get as close to the station out here and fly among the guy wires, and we would open the window and drop our film out, and we would have somebody from the station run out, get the film, have it processed in time for the news.
We're faster, but not always better than they were back then, in Bob's opinion.
I think that sometimes the people are hired for their looks. The other thing is the MTV editing. Snap, 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 3 seconds, 2 seconds. We tried to give the viewer time to absorb.
It's fair to say that after 50 years, all the new technology, newsroom staff 10 times bigger than when he was here, Bob is more concerned about news value than flashy window dressing. Where do you think all this stuff?
Well, I think Andrew did a pretty good job of lighting up a hairless person.
Often, breaking news literally falls from the sky. With Oklahoma's changing weather, storms can turn into major events in moments.
For the last 50 years of television, KWTV has held Oklahoma's and the nation's interest in severe weather coverage. In this space, my team and I track it all, from terrible twisters to Oklahoma heat waves. But we've come a long way, developing the latest radar and computer imaging. Tonight, Kelly and I show you how, for 5 decades, News 9 has kept you advised.
The early years held great promise, but special challenges. Many of you will remember this.
Good evening, everyone. Well, I was driving around with my little boy, Ronnie, tonight.
We had early and late evening newscasts, and when I first was on in Oklahoma, I had 15-minute weathercasts twice a day.
The effect of the stirring winds was very strong.
And I filled the shows with nothing but temperatures. We had hand-drawn maps, which I drew on the air with grease pencil on an acetate surface.
We used a huge drum. It was a big four-sided drum. And we drew on it with chalk. And in some ways that was beneficial because it was quick. You could work really very fast. Because the temperatures started coming over the wire across the country, you could have all those temperatures if you were drawing them in, because you didn't have to program them anyplace.
There was no such thing as graphic arts then.
The wind is from the south-southwest running up.
There were no computers, and we had no color. This was all in black and white.
Compared to today, it was very primitive, but it was fun. You know, it was a great time to be in television.
But in 1972, a little-known meteorologist from western Oklahoma was hired, and the face of broadcast meteorology as it was then known was never to be the same. Enter Gary England, who quickly emerged as a powerful innovator whose impact has changed the course of television weather warnings across the nation.
We'll keep you advised.
His immediate contributions to weather technology ushered in a new era of warnings. The value of those warnings, measured in lives saved, has been incalculable.
When I first came here, I could only warn you properly when it had blown someone else's house away 10 miles up the road from you and it'd be coming your way. So it looked pretty good, you know, for you, but for that particular guy, it wasn't too good. So the warnings were terrible. And so we never, ever said, you know, how can we do something great? We always said, how can we do this better?
Let's quickly check Doppler radar. In this particular area is where the tornado is.
Everything we've done here at News 9 through the year was born out of necessity. How can the warnings be better? How can we time the storms better? You know, how can we get more information to the people? That's a little map in the crawl. So it was all just, it just came about little by little. Never once did we say, wow, let's do something great today. That never happened.
Weather is an old technology in severe weather forecasting.
I hope you'll learn how to recognize tornadic conditions.
Who can deny the impact of the tremendously popular Those Terrible Twisters program that brought tornado and safety knowledge to thousands around the state? Live television has over the years produced some impromptu and quite unexpected moments, like when the Pennsylvania wood roach mesmerized viewers as it worked its way up Gary's face.
You know, we've got a bug spray on this place.
A camper started the blaze by lighting toilet paper on fire.
Or when Gary was overwhelmed on the set after a humorous news story.
Okay, let's do the currents, and I'm going to do it.
But what undoubtedly pleases viewers the most is Gary's recent announcement that he will be here for 10 more years, watching out for their safety. Perhaps he himself said it the best when asked about the future.
Forecasts themselves are going to get more accurate. Warnings will be a little bit more accurate. I see better warnings. I see more accurate forecasts as time rolls along. So it's an exciting time to be in the business. Grabbing the reins from the onset, KWTV quickly gained dominance as the preeminent authority in severe weather forecasting, a reputation it still holds to this day.
1953 was a different time in the world. A gallon of gas cost 22 cents, a loaf of bread, 14. I Love Lucy ruled the airwaves, and music lovers bopped to Hank Williams' Your Cheatin' Heart.
And it was that same year the Oklahoma Sooners started an NCAA record of 47 straight wins. Next, take a trip back with us as News 9 celebrates 50 years.
The state of Oklahoma has a rich history of sports, and News 9 has been right there covering it all for the last 50 years. I feel very fortunate to have been a small part of what has happened on the field and in front of your television sets. The people and the stories are very special.
I know I'm a fighter, a competitor, and a winner. And the people around me are, and our football team.
50 years in Oklahoma sports, 50 years of memories. My, how time flies, and my, how times and faces have changed in the past half century here at News 9 Sports.
Good evening, everyone. I'm John Snyder, and joining me tonight here in the studio, Tony Sellers, Ed Murray, and Stan Chase. And
when Oklahoma and Oklahoma State get together tomorrow for their annual showdown, look for running backs to dominate the game.
Well, it's Barry Swifter and Jimmy Johnson will tell you, you win football games with defense.
Figures to be a track meet involving some of the top backs in the conference, and yes, even in the country. And
what a hard way to make a living.
Mike, you're in my line. Could you move those scripts a little bit?
We are trying to decide which one of the Beatles we thought that Bill looked the most like out there with his hair all blown, but
it's a good look from Mo Howard.
I really don't know what to say to that. The game's finally here.
May we learn from the life of our friend Bill Teagans. Let us live, let us hope, and let us love. Good night, Bill.
And they're off and running at Runnington Park.
50 years. Personalities etched on our memories.
Oh, look at the back foot.
Regardless of how terrible the fish shape, do not.
I purposely didn't watch last year's film.
Some of you act like you're about half afraid to hit anybody out here this morning.
My thing's about a holler, they can give it to whoever they want to.
That was when Oklahoma became what Oklahoma is today.
I know we'll operate with no excuses.
Oklahoma has continuously featured some of the most memorable moments in all of sports.
It's knocked up. Reeves turns around, throws up a prayer.
First Big 12 team ever to make it into the Final Four.
Now the 2-2. Well hit down the left.
Oklahoma waltzes in 45-0 for 33 in a row. Nice job. He covers the attack again. McGee for three. Got it.
To Holbert to left field, and he is hit by Myers.
I think that's an intentional call.
They want to get it to Tisdale, down on the blocks.
There he goes.
2 seconds left.
May the next half-century bring us just as many characters, charisma, and champions.
We love you, Channel 9. I'm going to give you a great big kiss.
Right now, Oklahoma sports teams and athletes are making history. They're breaking records and winning major titles. It all builds a strong foundation to create memorable moments in the next 50 years.
You invited them into your home every night.
Yeah, I was in the right place at the right time.
But whatever happened to the faces from long ago? Up next, we go in search of old friends as News 9 celebrates 50 years.
Hi, I'm Big 9. Look what's coming.
As you can see, the looks of News 9 have really changed over the last 50 years. From Big 9 to Newsline 9 to today. And the faces have changed too. A diary of those who have come and gone is here along the control room wall. A reminder of the faces who bring you the day's news, weather, and sports.
We sought to film our subjects in their military surroundings.
It was the face of Bruce Palmer who first graced the airways of KWTV 9 in 1953.
He was responsible for the formulation of Channel 9 News. All 8 people we had at that time when we signed on.
Bruce also served as news director. Mark Weaver was hired on as co-anchor, mostly anchoring the 10 p.m. news.
As told by KWTV, it took a long time for people to really believe in television news. We were the first station in the market and in this whole part of the country to have investigative reporting and consumer reporting.
Many farmers heavily relied on Wayne Lyle's Evergreen Farm Show. After 32 years and many memories, in 1986, he retired. In 1995, Wayne passed away, but his memory lives on.
Storyland.
And who could forget Fran Morris? Mrs. Fran's Storyland, which zeroed in on her passion for children.
Our most famous graduate is Ed Turner. He became news director of the Metro Media Station in Washington, then joined CBS, and came back here as news director. And when Ted Turner formed CNN, Ed was hired as the first vice president in charge of the worldwide news.
The 70s brought Pam Olsen. She, too, went on to work at CNN, but not before landing the first primetime female co-anchor spot in a male-dominated Oklahoma City market.
I was in the right place at the right time. There was one male reporter in the newsroom who didn't think it was such a good idea, and he went around telling people that the newscast was going to go to hell because of it.
Quite the contrary. Pam, most known for Gift of Life, a half-hour documentary on the need for an organ donor retrieval system in Oklahoma, evoking a new law and the organ donor box on your license today. She is living in Tulsa, still reporting for the Tulsa World. This young face was just 24 when he took over as sports director. From 1973 to 1975 and 82 to 87, John Snyder remembers the road trips with OU and OSU, late-night editing sessions, and David Griffin's kindness. Today, he's in Charlotte, North Carolina, anchoring their midday and 5 o'clock news.
I remember Friday night in a big town. I can say it now. I remember sitting next to Roger Cooper and learning so much from him, and Gary on the other side, and learning a lot from Gary, too, and God rest him, Bill Teagans over here.
The 80s brought a face with a bright smile. After nearly 10 years, Patty Suarez went on to Fox in L.A. and eventually got back into acting, starring in movies like No Way Back with Russell Crowe and Up Close and Personal. But these days,
I've gone back into acting, and I do a lot of shows here, and I play the old lady parts now. And I also have a linen and lace business, an antique linen and lace business, which keeps me busy. Life is very good.
A life she shares with her husband of 32 years and their golden retriever, Snuffles, out in Arizona.
I have some wonderful memories, and I treasure all the wonderful viewers who were so good to me. And I will always appreciate it. Keep up the good work. Hey, KWTV, keep up the good work. You still got it, baby.
from 3 in the wing. Got it!
Of course, no one is as unforgettable as Bill Teagans. He stepped into the seat John Snyder emptied and carved an impression in the minds of Oklahomans forever.
He's the most humble guy I've ever met. I mean, he never once thought he was the story, which some people in the media have trouble realizing sometimes. He was so modest, so unassuming. It was always about the next person, the other person. It was never about him, and that was absolutely his charm.
I remember most about working at Channel 9. I remember Gary England sending me out in the middle of nowhere to chase tornadoes. Supporters say it's packed with...
And remember this light-hearted Okie? From 1982 to 1995, Mitch Jelniker held down the anchor desk during our state's most fragile time before moving to ABC in Denver, where he is now.
What would they remember me most for? The guy with the big fat head and the big ears. I left Oklahoma City because my parole officer said I should. We traveled a lot to go to a lot of different stories, which was a lot of fun. We got to go to all kinds of hurricanes and bowl games, and we were always on the run and always on the move, and that made covering news a lot of fun. So I'm proud to have worked there.
Storm hit. Preliminary damage.
Russ McCaskey worked in the late 80s until mid-90s as an anchor reporter. Deborah Lauren was here at the same time, a reporter and 5 p.m. anchor.
Good morning.
Deb McCaskey and Russ are married. They anchor the morning show at NBC in Tulsa. They're enjoying life with their 2 children, and both say they treasure the fun times at KWTV and the wonderful people they worked with.
Well, what happens if you...
The exact sentiment Jennifer Reynolds says she misses most about KWTV. She stays busy these days hosting Discover Oklahoma, America's Horse Show, and doing the news on the Cat Radio with Rick and Brad. She says she's grateful to the kindness of Oklahoma viewers, and we are grateful to have had her.
Couldn't have said it better.
Thanks, Bill.
What's next for News 9? We'll tell you.
You're watching 50 years of News 9.
While we have 50 years of hard-earned experience under our belts here at News 9, we're not about to stop.
The times are forging ahead. New technology will change the way we bring you the day's news. In fact, it already is. But it's solid principle and mission that keeps us dedicated to taking you through what we hope will be another 5 decades.
The first 50 years that I look at this company, and I personally look at it, that it was the beginning.
Now, the digital age is upon us. All the technology in the world won't change the ideals on which News 9 was founded.
Hopefully, over the next 50 years, we just continue to get better, continue to serve our community, and just continue to do just a great job.
So, for the last 50 years...
To the next 50 years.
Stay with News 9. We'll keep you 5.